My name is Savannah Walker. I'm 60 years old, and I always believed family was sacred, the kind of sacred you build with 38 years of sacrifice, midnight fevers, and homemade birthday cakes. That belief died the night my son Roman slapped me 15 times, while his wife Riley watched and laughed. What they didn't know was that the house they called theirs was still legally mine, and my revenge would come not with screams, but with the cold silence of legal documents. But let me back up. Let me tell you about the Sunday that changed everything. It was October 15th, one of those perfect autumn days in Georgetown, where the leaves turn gold and the air smells like wood smoke and possibility. I'd spent the morning making lasagna, not just any lasagna, but the one with extra bechamel sauce that Roman had loved since he was 7 years old. The one he always requested for his birthday. The one I'd made for every milestone high school graduation, law school acceptance, his wedding day. I can still see myself in that kitchen, my kitchen, the one I'd scrubbed and painted and arranged over 42 years of marriage to Thomas. The late afternoon sun streamed through the window above the sink, catching dust motes in its golden light. My hands, 60 years old, spotted now the veins raised like small rivers beneath papery skin, layered pasta sheets with practiced precision. Muscle memory from decades of feeding the people I loved. The house was quiet except for the classical music station I always played while cooking. Vivaldi, I think. Something bright and uncomplicated the way life used to be before Thomas died of a heart attack 10 years ago, before Roman married Riley 5 years ago, before I somehow became invisible in the home I'd built. Riley arrived first at 5:47 p.m. I remember checking the clock, a habit from my 35 years as an elementary school teacher in Brooklyn. Punctuality mattered to me. Apparently it didn't matter to her. She swept through the front door without knocking. She never knocked anymore, her Chanel No. 5 arriving 3 seconds before she did. That perfume gave me headaches, though I'd never told her. Just another small discomfort I swallowed to keep the peace. For you, Mom Savannah. She emphasized the mom with just enough edge to remind me I wasn't actually her mother, would never be her mother. She placed a bottle of wine on the kitchen counter, cheap Pinot Grigio from Trader Joe's, the kind that cost $5.99. I wiped my hands on my apron and smiled. Thank you, dear. That's very thoughtful. She knew I didn't drink. The blood pressure medication I'd been on since my 60th birthday made alcohol inadvisable. But Riley wasn't the type to pay attention to details that didn't concern her directly. I watched her circle the kitchen like a real estate appraiser, which in a way she was. Her eyes sharp, calculating the color of river stones swept over the vintage Hoosier cabinet I'd restored myself, the collection of copper pots hanging above the stove. The farmhouse table Thomas and I had bought at an estate sale in Maryland 30 years ago. Her gaze lingered on my grandmother's gold watch, the one I wore every day. An heirloom from 1952, delicate filigree work worth more sentimentally than financially. But I saw the assessment in her eyes, the mental calculation. That's a beautiful watch, she said, reaching out to touch it. I pulled my wrist back gently. It was my grandmother's. She gave it to me on my wedding day. Riley's smile didn't reach her eyes. It never did. Family heirlooms are so valuable. You should really keep it in a safe. I keep it on my wrist where it belongs. The tension stretched between us like a wire. Then she laughed that high, brittle sound that always made me think of breaking glass and moved to examine the photographs on the refrigerator. Pictures of Roman as a baby, as a gap-toothed first grader, as a proud college graduate. No pictures of Riley. I'd offered to print some from their wedding, but she'd waved me off. We're not really photo people, she'd said. Roman arrived 30 minutes late at 6:17 p.m. I heard his car first, the aggressive engine of his BMW too loud for the quiet Georgetown street. Then the slam of the car door, the heavy footsteps, the jangle of keys thrown carelessly onto the entryway table. He appeared in the kitchen doorway, and I felt my stomach tighten. I'd raised this man. I knew his moods the way I knew the rhythm of my own heartbeat. And tonight he was angry. Hey, not hi, Mom, not smells great, just hey, flat and dismissive. He was 38 years old, my Roman. Tall like his father, with Thomas's dark hair now touched with premature gray at the temples. A corporate lawyer at one of D.C.'s most prestigious firms, the kind of success I'd worked 2 jobs to help finance. His law school loans, the bar exam prep course, the loan for his first professional wardrobe, that we both knew he'd never repay, all gifts from a mother who believed in her son's potential. He looked like he'd aged 5 years since I'd last seen him 2 weeks ago. Dark circles under his eyes. Tie loosened top button undone, a muscle jumping in his jaw. "Tough day at work, honey?" I asked softly. He poured himself 3 fingers of whiskey from the bottle he kept in my cabinet. "You could say that." Riley appeared beside him, her hand possessive on his arm. "Baby, maybe you should just relax. Your mom made dinner." The way she said "your mom," like I was an obligation, a duty to be discharged. We sat at the dining table, the one that had hosted countless family dinners, birthday celebrations, holiday meals. I'd set it carefully with the good china the wedding gift set I'd inherited from Thomas's mother. White plates with a delicate gold rim only used for special occasions. Was this special? I wasn't sure anymore, but I wanted it to be. I wanted to believe that Sunday dinners still mattered, that family still mattered. I served the lasagna with hands that shook slightly, though I told myself it was just fatigue. The kitchen faucet had been dripping all day, that slow, irregular plink, plink, plink that sets your teeth on edge. "Roman," I said as I set his plate down, my voice gentle, conversational. "The kitchen faucet is leaking again. Do you think we could call a plumber this week? It's getting worse." The silence that followed was the kind that precedes earthquakes. Roman set down his fork with deliberate precision. "The faucet in my house, you mean?" He emphasized the "my," like he was carving the word into stone, into my skin, into the very foundation of the home I'd built. I felt my face grow hot. "I just meant—" "You meant what exactly?" He pushed his chair back, the legs scraping against the hardwood floor I'd refinished 2 summers ago. "You think you can tell me what needs fixing in my house?" Riley's eyes gleamed. She sat back in her chair, one hand resting on her lower belly, a gesture I'd noticed lately, protective, secretive. But her face showed only that terrible anticipation, like a child waiting for a firecracker to explode. "Roman, my throat felt tight. "I was just mentioning—" "Have you forgotten?" He stood now, towering over me. "Have you forgotten that I took you in when nobody else wanted you, after Dad died, when you had nowhere to go?" The words hit like physical blows, because they weren't entirely untrue. After Thomas died, after I sold our Brooklyn apartment, the one we'd spent 30 years paying off, I had needed somewhere to live. And Roman had suggested we pool our resources, buy a bigger house together in Georgetown. For tax purposes, he'd said. We could both benefit. I remembered that day at the lawyer's office. George Patterson, a friend of Thomas's from law school, now semi-retired, but still maintaining a small practice. Roman had been so convincing. "Mom, for tax purposes and estate planning, it makes sense to put the house in my name. You'll still live here. It's still your home. But it protects you from estate taxes, makes everything simpler." I'd signed the papers. I'd trusted my son. What Roman didn't know, what I'd never told him, was that George had called me 2 days later. "Savannah," he'd said, his voice careful, "I need you to come back to the office. There's an issue with the notarization." I'd gone back. George had explained that the transfer document needed to be notarized and filed with the D.C. County Recorder's Office to be legally valid. "Right now," he'd said, "it's just a private contract. It has no legal standing. The deed is still in your name." "Should I tell Roman?" I'd asked. George had looked at me for a long moment. "That's up to you, Savannah. But the house is legally yours until proper transfer is completed. Maybe hold on to that information, just in case." Just in case. I'd put the original deed in my dresser drawer in the bedroom at the back of the house, the room they'd given me when I moved in after Roman and Riley claimed the master suite. I'd told myself it was fine. I didn't need much space. I was just grateful to have a home. But now, watching Roman's face contort with rage over a dripping faucet, George's words echoed differently. "Just in case." "I haven't forgotten anything," I said quietly, my eyes on my untouched lasagna. "Look at me when I'm talking to you." His hand shot out, gripping my chin, forcing my head up. His fingers dug into my jaw, and I saw Riley's sharp intake of breath. Not horror, but excitement. Her phone was in her hand now, but she set it down. She wouldn't want a record of this. And then it happened. The first slap came as a shock. Not from the pain, though it stung bright and sharp across my left cheek, but from the sheer impossibility of it. This was Roman. My Roman. The boy I'd rocked through colic, the teenager I'd taught to drive the young man I'd sent off to college with a care package and $20 for pizza. My son had never raised a hand to me. Never. The second slap was harder. My head snapped to the side and I tasted copper on my tongue. I'd bitten the inside of my cheek. "Roman, please," I whispered. But he wasn't Roman anymore. He was his father in those final years before the heart attack. Thomas had never hit me, but he'd had the same rage, the same need to control to diminish. I'd endured his emotional abuse for 38 years, convinced that good wives weathered storms, that good mothers protected their children from their father's disappointments. And now I saw it. I'd protected Roman right into becoming the monster I'd shielded him from. The third slap. The fourth. I stopped counting after 10. I just sat there rigid in my chair while my son unleashed something dark and terrible. Riley's laughter echoed in the background, not loud, but there, present, a soundtrack to my humiliation. When he finally stopped, Roman was panting. Sweat beaded on his forehead. He adjusted his shirt collar, smoothed his hair as if he'd just closed an important business deal. "That's so you learn who's in charge here," he said, his voice steady now, controlled. Professional. Riley was smiling openly. No pretense of concern, no performance of shock. Just satisfaction, pure and simple. I stood slowly. My legs trembled, but they held. I looked at my son, really looked at him, and couldn't find the child I'd loved. That boy was gone. Maybe he'd never existed. Maybe I'd loved an illusion all along. Without a word, I walked to my bedroom. Each step was measured, deliberate. I wouldn't run. I wouldn't let them see me run. Behind me, I heard Riley's whisper. She had it coming. Always acting like she owns this place. Roman's response, "Not anymore, she doesn't." I closed my bedroom door. Not a slam, just a quiet click. I sat on the edge of my bed, the one I'd brought from Brooklyn, and looked at my reflection in the dresser mirror. My face was already swelling. My left cheek bore the clear outline of Roman's hand. My right eye would be black by morning. There was blood at the corner of my mouth. I touched my face, gently cataloging the damage. And something strange happened. Instead of crying, instead of the breakdown they probably expected to hear through the door, I felt something cold and crystalline forming in my chest. Clarity. For the first time in 3 years, maybe in 40 years, I saw my situation with perfect clarity. I stood and opened my dresser drawer. There, beneath old sweaters and Thomas's forgotten cufflinks, was the folder George had given me. I pulled out the deed. Property deed, 2847 N Street, Dalu, Georgetown, Washington, D.C. Owner, Savannah Marie Walker. My name. Only my name. Still my name. I read it 3 times, my heartbeat slowing, my breathing steadying. They thought they'd erased me. They thought I was helpless, dependent, trapped. They were wrong. I set the deed on my nightstand and reached for my phone. It had been charging on the dresser, and when I picked it up, I noticed something. The voice recorder app was open. Still running. I must have accidentally activated it earlier while cooking, maybe when I'd set the phone down to check a recipe. The app showed 47 minutes of recording. My hands shook as I pressed play, volume low. My own voice, "The kitchen faucet is leaking again." Roman's voice, "The faucet in my house, you mean?" Then the escalation, the threats, the sounds, unmistakable sickening of flesh hitting flesh. My silence. Riley's laughter, crystal clear. I stopped the playback. My vision blurred, but not from tears. From rage. From purpose. I forwarded the file to 3 email addresses, my own, Helen's, my college roommate in San Francisco, and George's. Then I uploaded it to a cloud storage account. Multiple backups. Protected. Preserved. This wasn't just evidence. This was insurance. Through the bedroom door, I could hear them in the living room. Roman's voice, tired now. "She'll get over it. She always does." Riley, "Maybe we should look at care facilities. Get her out of here. We could finally have the house to ourselves." "We already have the house to ourselves. She's just occupying space." Occupying space. I was 60 years old. I had been a teacher for 35 years, shaping young minds, earning respect from parents and administrators alike. I had been a wife for 38 years, loyal and steadfast. I had been a mother for 38 years, sacrificing everything, my career ambitions, my savings, my identity, to ensure Roman had every opportunity. And to him, to them, I was just occupying space. I packed a small bag. Not much, just documents. Birth certificate, social security card. Thomas's death certificate. The deed, my grandmother's jewelry that I kept in a locked box. Everything important. Everything they couldn't replace or steal. My photo albums stayed. Let them have the pictures. Those memories were tainted now anyway. My clothes stayed. I could buy new ones. the copper pots, the china, the furniture, all of it stayed. Material things already poisoned by tonight. I looked around the small bedroom. This had never really been my room, I realized. It had been a consolation prize, a guest room with a permanent guest. I'd never hung pictures, never painted the walls my favorite sage green, never made it mine. Because some part of me had always known I was temporary here. I lay down on the bed fully clothed and didn't sleep. I planned. By 3 a.m. I had a complete strategy, step-by-step, action by action, legal, irreversible, and absolutely devastating to them. I wasn't just leaving. I was taking back what was mine. At 5:47 a.m. I heard Roman's alarm. The shower started at 5:52, Riley's blow dryer at 6:15, the coffee maker at 6:23. I knew their routine by heart. At 6:45, Roman's BMW started. At 6:47, Riley's Mercedes followed. I waited 30 more minutes watching the street from my bedroom window. Sometimes Roman forgot things, his phone, his wallet, his trial notes. I wouldn't risk an unexpected return. At 7:17 a.m., I emerged from my bedroom. The kitchen was a disaster, dirty dishes, congealed lasagna, the cheap wine bottle empty. They hadn't cleaned up. Why would they? I was the maid after all. I left it all exactly as it was. I put on my warmest coat, the navy pea coat from LL Bean that Riley had once called dowdy. I put my grandmother's watch on my wrist. I picked up my small bag of documents, and I walked out the back door of 2847 N Street, Nalu, for what I hoped would be the last time. Georgetown was beautiful in the early morning. Mist rose from the Potomac, and the historic row houses glowed pink in the dawn light. I'd always loved this neighborhood, its charm, its history, its sense of permanence. But I'd never felt like I belonged here. Not really. Brooklyn had been home. The modest apartment Thomas and I had shared with its noisy neighbors and view of a brick wall had been more home than this elegant Georgetown house would ever be. I walked 3 blocks to a small cafe on Wisconsin Avenue, one of those places that opens early for the pre-work crowd. I ordered black coffee and a blueberry muffin I wouldn't eat, and I sat by the window with my phone. First call Helen. She answered on the second ring, her voice groggy. "Savannah, it's 4:20 in the morning here. What's wrong?" "Everything," I said. "Can I come to San Francisco?" A pause, then wide awake. "Are you safe right now?" "Yes." "Tell me what happened." I told her. Not all of it. I couldn't bear to speak all of it aloud, but enough. When I finished, the silence on the line stretched so long I thought we'd been disconnected. Then Helen said, her voice shaking with fury. "You get on a plane today. Right now. I'm texting you my address. You come here, you stay as long as you need, and we figure this out." "I can't just leave. There are things I need to do first." "Savannah?" "Legal things, Helen. Important things. Give me 3 days. Then I'll come." Another pause. 3 days, and you call me every single day. Promise me." "I promise." Second call, George Patterson. He answered on the 4th ring. "Savannah, is everything all right?" "No," I said as he said. "I need to see you this morning. It's urgent." "Come to the office at 9. "I can't. Can you come to me, the Cafe Milano on Wisconsin?" He heard something in my voice. "I'll be there in 40 minutes. George arrived at 8:03 a.m., still in his pajamas, under a windbreaker, his silver hair uncombed. He took one look at my face. I'd tried to cover the bruising with makeup, but 60-year-old skin doesn't hide trauma well, and his expression hardened. "Tell me," I told him. I showed him the bruises. I played him the recording there in the cafe with my phone volume low, his ear bent close to hear. When it finished, he was pale. "Savannah, my God. I need to sell the house." He blinked. "The house. Today. Right now. Is it possible?" George sat back, his lawyer's mind already working through the logistics. "Legally, yes. The property is in your name. You have sole ownership rights. But Savannah, selling a house in Georgetown takes time. Listing showings offers. I don't want to list it. I want to sell it directly. Cash sale. Today. Today. I want Roman to come home from work and find it gone. I want him to understand what it feels like to have the ground disappear beneath his feet." George studied my face. "You're sure about this?" It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. "He's not my son anymore, George. I don't know what he is, but he's not the boy I raised. And I won't spend whatever years I have left being afraid in my own home." "It was never your home, was it?" George said quietly. "Not in the way that mattered." "No, it wasn't." He pulled out his phone. Let me make some calls. While George worked his network, I sat in that cafe and thought about the house. I'd bought it with $425,000 from selling the Brooklyn apartment. Every penny Thomas and I had saved invested in what Roman promised would be our home. The house was worth $850,000 now. Georgetown real estate had appreciated significantly in 3 years. I'd get at least $750,000 even with a quick sale, George said. More than enough to start over. More than enough to be free. At 9:47 a.m., George's phone rang. He spoke for 6 minutes, hung up, and smiled at me. Robert and Jennifer Miller, both doctors at Georgetown University Hospital. They've been searching for a house in this neighborhood for 3 months. Their current lease ends in 2 weeks, and they're desperate. I explained the situation well, a version of it. I said you needed to relocate quickly for health reasons. And they want to see the house at 11. I felt my breath catch. That fast. Savannah, the Georgetown market is insane right now. A well-maintained house within walking distance of the hospital, they've been outbid on 5 properties. They're ready to pay cash. What about Roman and Riley? They might come home for lunch. George checked his watch. Roman's in court today. I checked the D.C. Superior Court docket this morning. He has a hearing at 10 that typically runs until 2. Riley works at that tech startup in Rosslyn, right? She never comes home for lunch. He'd thought of everything. Of course he had. George had been a criminal defense attorney for 40 years. He knew how to execute a plan. Let's do it, I said. We drove back to the house in George's Subaru. My hands shook as I unlocked the door, half expecting Roman to be there waiting. But the house was empty exactly as I'd left it. The Millers arrived at 11:07 a.m. Robert was tall and kind-faced, with graying temples and gentle hands. Jennifer was petite and energetic, her eyes bright with hope. They were both in their early 40s, I guessed. Young enough to start fresh, old enough to appreciate the history of a place. They walked through the house with barely contained excitement. Jennifer touched the crown molding, examined the original hardwood floors, opened cabinets in the kitchen I'd painted just last spring. It's perfect, she breathed. Robert, it's perfect. In the kitchen, she paused. Is that faucet leaking? I felt a strange, cold satisfaction. Yes, it needs to be replaced. We can handle that, Robert said quickly. Not a problem at all. We sat at the dining room table, the same table where Roman had struck me 12 hours earlier, and discussed terms. The Millers offered $785,000 cash immediate closing. It was $65,000 below market value, but I didn't care. This wasn't about money. This was about freedom. We can close today, Jennifer said. Our lawyer is standing by. We sold our house in California last month, and the funds are in escrow ready to transfer. George looked at me. Savannah, I thought about Roman sitting in a courtroom right now, confident and arrogant. I thought about Riley at her desk in Rosslyn, probably shopping online for furniture to fill her house. I thought about myself at 22, young and hopeful, marrying Thomas. At 25, holding baby Roman for the first time. At 35, working 2 jobs to pay for his private school. At 50, burying Thomas. At 60, being slapped 15 times by the child I'd sacrificed everything for. Let's do it, Wong, I said. We met at George's office at 1:30 p.m. It was a small practice in a converted townhouse in DuPont Circle, elegant and understated. George had called in favors a notary, a title company representative who owed him from a case years ago, a clerk from the D.C. County Recorder's Office who agreed to expedite the filing. The paperwork took 90 minutes. I signed my name 37 times. Savannah Marie Walker. Each signature felt like a declaration of independence. The Miller's lawyer, a sharp woman in her 50s named Patricia Chen, reviewed everything with meticulous care. Ms. Walker, she said at one point, I need to ask, does anyone else have a claim to this property? Any co-owners, liens, mortgages? No, I said firmly. The house is solely in my name. There's no mortgage, no liens. I have the original deed. George produced it from his briefcase. Patricia examined it, cross-referenced it with the county records on her laptop, and nodded. Everything's in order. At 3:47 p.m., the wire transfer completed. $785,000 appeared in the new bank account I'd opened that morning at a different bank, not the one Roman and I had shared. This account had only my name on it, my money, my future. I handed the keys to Robert Miller. He held them like something precious. Ms. Walker, he said, I have to ask, are you sure about this moving out so quickly? Do you need help with your belongings? I'm not taking anything, I said. The house is furnished. Use it all. Sell it all, donate it all, whatever you prefer. I don't want any of it. Jennifer's eyes were suspiciously bright. She'd noticed the bruises, I was sure, though she was too polite to mention them. We'll take good care of it, she said softly. And Ms. Walker, I hope wherever you're going you find peace. I will, I said, and I meant it. George drove me to my bank where I deposited a cashier's check for $50,000 into my checking account. The rest stayed in savings. I'd need it for San Francisco for starting over for whatever came next. What now? George asked as we sat in his car outside the bank. I checked my phone. 4:23 p.m. Roman would be leaving court soon, heading back to the office for another few hours. He usually got home around 6:30 p.m. Now I leave, I said, before he comes home. Where will you go? Union Station. I'll take the train to San Francisco, 3 days across the country. I need the time to think. George pulled an envelope from his jacket. I took the liberty of booking you a roomette on the California Zephyr. It leaves at 4:05 tomorrow afternoon, but I figured you might want a hotel tonight. I've also included the name of a family law attorney in San Francisco just in case. I took the envelope, my throat tight. George, I can't. Thomas was my friend Savannah, one of my best friends. If he were here, he'd be ashamed of his son. But he'd be so proud of you. George's eyes were wet. You take care of yourself, and when you're ready, when you're settled, you call me. We'll make sure Roman can never hurt you again. I hugged him there in the car, this kind man who'd protected me when I didn't even know I needed protecting. Then I took an Uber to a hotel near Union Station. Not a fancy place, just clean and anonymous. I checked in under my own name, paid cash, and took the elevator to a small room on the 4th floor. I sat on the bed and looked at my phone. 17 missed calls from Roman. 8 from Riley. 12 text messages. I didn't read them. I didn't need to. I could imagine the progression: confusion, anger, threats, panic. Instead, I texted Helen, leaving D.C. tomorrow. Train arrives October 19th at 4:10 p.m. See you soon. Her response came immediately. I'll be at the station. Stay strong. I ordered room service soup and bread comfort food and ate it slowly while watching the news. A senator was being investigated for corruption. The Nationals had lost another game. A new restaurant was opening in Adams Morgan. Normal life continuing around me while my own life transformed completely. At 6:47 p.m., my phone rang. Roman. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, a text. Mom, where are you? The house is locked. My key doesn't work. There are strangers here. Call me immediately. Another text. This is serious. I'm calling the police if you don't answer. Then Riley, what the hell did you do? Where are our things? What is wrong with you? I turned off my phone. I ran a bath hot with the hotel's lavender bath salts and sank into it. The water stung the bruises on my face, my arms where Roman had grabbed me. But the pain felt cleansing somehow, a baptism into a new life. Tomorrow I'd board a train. In 3 days I'd arrive in San Francisco. And somewhere between here and there I'd figure out who Savannah Walker was supposed to be. Not Roman's mother, not Thomas's widow, not the invisible woman occupying space in someone else's house. Just Savannah, 60 years old and starting over. I woke at dawn in the hotel room momentarily disoriented. The mattress was too soft, the room too quiet. Then I remembered I was free. I spent the morning preparing for the journey. I bought a new suitcase at a department store near the hotel. Nothing fancy, just serviceable. I bought clothes, jeans, comfortable shirts, a warm sweater for the train's air conditioning, toiletries, a journal with a leather cover. Starting fresh, the cashier asked, eyeing my purchases. Something like that, I said. I checked my phone once briefly. 43 missed calls, 27 texts, 2 voicemails. I listened to one voicemail just to know. Roman's voice shaking. Mom, please, whatever's going on, we can fix it. Just call me. I'm sorry about last night. I was stressed, I lost my temper. It won't happen again. Please call me back. It won't happen again. The eternal refrain of abusers everywhere. I deleted the voicemail, blocked his number, blocked Riley's number. That chapter of my life was closed. At 3:30 p.m., I arrived at Union Station. The building was magnificent Beaux-Arts architecture, soaring ceilings, that famous quote carved in stone. He that would bring home the wealth of the Indies must carry the wealth of the Indies with him. I was carrying something more valuable than wealth dignity. The California Zephyr was already boarding. My roomette was small but private, a seat that converted to a bed, a tiny bathroom, a window. Perfect. As the train pulled out of the station at 4:05 p.m. exactly, I watched Washington, D.C. slide past my window. The Capitol dome gleaming white in the afternoon sun. The monuments. The Potomac River dark and swift. Somewhere in that city, Roman was probably still trying to reach me. Probably consulting lawyers trying to figure out how his mother had sold his house out from under him. Let him wonder. Let him panic. Let him feel for once what it's like to be powerless. The train picked up speed and the city gave way to suburbs, then countryside. Maryland, then West Virginia, the landscape turning to rolling hills and autumn forests. I opened my new journal and wrote October 16th. Day 1 of my new life. I am 60 years old. For 58 of those years, I defined myself by my relationships. Daughter, wife, mother, teacher. For the last 2 years, I've been invisible, a ghost in my own home. Today, I became visible again. Not as someone's mother or someone's burden, just as Savannah. I don't know who that is yet, but I have time to find out. A gentle knock on my roomette door, the attendant smiling. Dinner service starts at 5:30. Would you like a reservation? Yes, please, I said. A table for one. Traveling alone, I smiled. Yes, completely alone, and it's wonderful. That night I ate dinner in the dining car as the sun set over the Appalachian Mountains. I sat with 3 strangers, a college student heading home to Colorado, an elderly couple celebrating their 50th anniversary, a businesswoman returning from a conference. We talked about everything except why I was traveling. They didn't ask about the fading bruises on my face. They were too polite, or maybe they understood that some stories need time before they can be told. After dinner, I returned to my roomette and watched the darkness rush past my window. Somewhere out there, America continued small towns and big cities, mountains and plains, people living their ordinary, extraordinary lives. And somewhere behind me, in a Georgetown house that was no longer mine, Roman and Riley were learning a hard lesson that the people you take for granted don't always stay. I fell asleep to the rhythm of the rails heading west toward a future I couldn't yet imagine. But for the first time in years, I was excited to find out what it held. Roman, October 16th, 6:15 p.m. I didn't plan to tell the story from Roman's perspective, but I heard about it later from George, from the Millers, from the police report that was filed, and then quietly withdrawn. So I can imagine it can see it as clearly as if I'd been there myself, watching my son's world collapse. Roman left the courthouse at 5:47 p.m., his trial having been continued until next week. A small victory, his associate said. Roman barely heard him. He was thinking about Sunday night, about the look on my face, about the way I'd walked to my bedroom without a word. He'd felt powerful in that moment, in control. The way his father used to look after one of their discussions, Thomas never called them arguments. Discussions. As if shouting down your wife or your son was just vigorous debate. But driving home through Georgetown's narrow streets, Roman felt something else. Unease. Guilt maybe, though he pushed it away. I'd overstepped, he told himself. I'd needed to be reminded of my place. His key didn't work. He tried it 3 times, jiggling the lock before he accepted it. Someone had changed the locks on his house. His house. He pounded on the door. Once, twice, then continuously until it opened. A stranger stood there. Tall, maybe 6'2", wearing surgical scrubs. Kind eyes that went wary when they saw Roman's face. "Can I help you?" the stranger asked. "Who the hell are you?" Roman demanded. "This is my house." "No, sir." The man's voice was calm, professional, a doctor's voice. "This is our house. My wife and I purchased it yesterday. I'm Dr. Robert Miller." Behind Dr. Miller, a woman appeared. Petite, also in scrubs, her expression concerned. "Robert, is everything okay?" "This gentleman seems to think this is his house," Robert said. Roman's mind went blank, then white-hot with rage. "There's been a mistake. A massive mistake. My mother lives here. Where is Savannah Walker?" "Ms. Walker sold us this property," Robert said. He disappeared for a moment, returning with a folder. "Here are the papers. Filed with D.C. the county yesterday at 3:52 p.m. Everything's legal and binding." Roman snatched the papers. His eyes scanned frantically. Purchase agreement. Deed transfer. County recorder's stamp. Owner Savannah Marie Walker. Not Roman Alexander Walker. Savannah. This can't be right, he said, his voice hollow. The house is in my name. We signed papers. 3 years ago. Robert's expression shifted, not quite pity, but something close. According to the county records, the property was never transferred out of Ms. Walker's name. She was the sole legal owner. Where is she? Roman's voice cracked. Where's my mother? She didn't say. She left no forwarding address. The world tilted. Roman stumbled backward off the porch, pulling out his phone. He dialed my number. Straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. He tried 17 times, standing on the sidewalk in front of the house. My house. His brain insisted, even as the evidence mounted against him, before Jennifer Miller quietly closed the door. Through the window, Roman saw them moving through what had been his living room. Their furniture was already being unloaded from a truck parked on the street. Professional movers carrying boxes, a sofa, a dining table. They were moving in. Right now. While he stood there like an idiot. Riley's Mercedes pulled up at 6:47 p.m. She got out, shopping bags in hand. Anthropologie Nordstrom. A good day, apparently. Why are you standing out here? She asked. Did you forget your key? Roman couldn't speak. He just handed her the papers. Riley read them once quickly, then again slowly, her face going pale beneath her perfect makeup. She sold the house, Riley said. It wasn't a question. Apparently. How it's in your name? No, Roman said, the word tasting like ashes. It was always in hers. The transfer was never finalized. George must have... He stopped. George, his father's old friend, the lawyer who'd handled the paperwork. You trusted a lawyer to transfer property and didn't follow up. Riley's voice rose shrill. What kind of attorney are you? This is your fault, Roman shouted back. Always pushing me, always wanting more. Get her out of here, Roman. Put her in a home. We need the space for the baby. You knew I was stressed. Riley's hand flew to her stomach, that protective gesture she'd been doing lately. Don't you dare blame me for your temper. I didn't tell you to hit her. I didn't. But he had. He knew he had. The memory was crystal clear, my face, the sound of his hand connecting again and again. I lost control. You think... Riley's laugh was bitter. Your mother just sold your house out from under you because you beat her, Roman. Beat her, and I watched. God, I watched and I laughed. Her voice broke on the last word. A police cruiser pulled up. The Millers had called them. Of course they had. Roman and Riley were causing a scene on a quiet Georgetown street. The officer was young professional. He checked the papers, confirmed everything was legal, and suggested Roman and Riley leave before they were charged with disturbing the peace. They sat in Roman's BMW parked 3 blocks away. Riley made phone calls, her parents in Chicago, their lawyer, anyone who might have answers. Roman just stared at his phone. My contact photo smiled at him, a picture from 5 years ago, before his wedding, when I'd been so happy for him. So proud. When had that changed? When had love curdled into resentment? The text messages started arriving. First from his law firm, confused colleagues asking why he'd missed afternoon meetings. Then from Riley's work, someone had called looking for her. Then one from a number he didn't recognize. Mr. Walker, this is George Patterson. Your mother asked me to inform you that all her belongings have been removed from the property. She wishes you well, but requests no further contact. Any attempts to reach her will be considered harassment. Roman read it 3 times. Then he threw his phone against the dashboard. The screen's spiderweb cracked. Riley flinched. Don't, she said quietly. Don't do that. Do what? Break things when you're angry, like your father did. The words hung in the air between them. Savannah, October 17th, somewhere in West Virginia, I woke to sunlight streaming through my roomette window and the gentle sway of the train. For a moment I forgot where I was. Then I remembered I was free. The attendant brought coffee and a croissant. I ate breakfast watching the Allegheny Mountains roll past their peaks touched with autumn gold. My phone, I'd turned it back on briefly to check the time, showed 43 missed calls. I turned it off again and put it in my suitcase. Later, maybe, when I was stronger. A woman knocked on my door around mid-morning. She was perhaps 70, with silver hair and a neat bun and laugh lines around her eyes. I'm sorry to bother you, dear, she said. But I saw you dining alone last night, and I wondered if you'd like company for lunch. Traveling solo can be lonely. I almost said no. Then I looked at her kind face and thought, this is what starting over looks like. Saying yes to new things. I'd like that, I said. Her name was Margaret. She was traveling to Denver to meet her first great-grandchild. Over lunch in the dining car, I had the salmon. She had the chicken. She told me about her life, 52 years of marriage, 4 children, 9 grandchildren, a career as a librarian. And you, she asked, what takes you west? I hesitated. Then slowly I told her. Not everything. I couldn't speak everything aloud, not yet. But enough. When I finished, Margaret reached across the table and took my hand. Her skin was paper thin, spotted with age, warm with compassion. My dear girl, she said, you did the right thing. 60 isn't old. You have 20, 30 good years ahead of you. Don't spend them being invisible. I'm not sure I know how to be anything else, I admitted. Then you'll learn, one day at a time. She squeezed my hand. What was your favorite thing before you became a wife, a mother? What did young Savannah love? I thought back. So far back. To Brooklyn in the 1980s when I was fresh out of college with my teaching degree. Before Thomas. Before responsibility. Dancing, I said, surprised by the memory. I used to go to this club in Manhattan with my girlfriends. We'd dance for hours. I searched for the word. Alive. I felt alive. Margaret smiled. Then dance again. Maybe not in a club, these old bones couldn't take it, but find your music. Find what makes you feel alive. That afternoon alone in my roomette, I thought about her words. What made me feel alive? Not cooking for ungrateful people, not cleaning a house where I was merely tolerated, not shrinking myself to fit into corners. I pulled out my new journal and made a list things I want to do. Learn to paint watercolors maybe. Visit museums without rushing. Read books. I choose not book club selections. Garden, grow my own vegetables. Find a place that's truly mine. Maybe someday forgive Roman, or at least let go of the anger. Maybe someday love again, or at least be open to it. The list was modest, achievable, mine, Roman, October 18th, Alexandria, VA. The motel room was $87 a night. Roman lay on the scratchy bedspread staring at the water-stained ceiling and tried to figure out where it had all gone wrong. Riley had gone to a hotel, a nicer one she'd made sure to mention. I need space, she'd said. I need to think about what he wanted to ask. But he didn't. He was afraid of the answer. His phone, the screen still cracked from his outburst, buzzed constantly. Colleagues asking questions. Clients wondering about missed deadlines. His landlord from the Georgetown house, except it wasn't his landlord anymore, was it? And his mother. Silent. Vanished. He'd driven by the house twice yesterday, some pathetic part of him hoping it was all a mistake. But the Millers' cars were in the driveway. New curtains hung in the windows. A moving truck sat on the street, men unloading boxes. They were making it their home. The way he'd never let me make it mine. Riley called at 8:47 p.m. We need to talk. They met at a Starbucks in Arlington. Neutral territory. Riley looked exhausted, her makeup thin, her usual polish dimmed. I'm pregnant, she said without preamble. Roman felt his world shift again. What, 8 weeks? I found out 3 weeks ago. She wrapped her hands around her latte cup. I was going to tell you Sunday night, after dinner. I thought it would be a celebration. Instead, there had been violence, and laughter, and everything falling apart. Riley, he reached for her hand. That's wonderful. We can figure this out. Find a new place, start fresh. She pulled her hand away. I'm going to Chicago. What? My parents have offered me their guest house. I'll have the baby there. Get my life together. She met his eyes. Away from you. You can't, Riley, please. I made a mistake. One mistake. I'll get help, One mistake. Her laugh was hollow. Roman, you beat your 60-year-old mother. 15 times. I counted. And I sat there and laughed. She touched her stomach again. I'm carrying a girl. Your mother told me that at Sunday dinner. I just found out the sex. I was so excited to tell you. Tears streamed down her face now. What if you hit our daughter someday? What if I laugh? What if we become exactly what we saw in that dining room? I would never. You said you'd never hit your mother too. I heard you say it years ago. Remember when we were dating and you told me about your father's temper, you swore you'd never be like him. Riley stood. But you are like him, and I won't raise a child in that shadow. She left him there, sitting alone with cold coffee and the ruins of his life. October 19th, Sacramento, California. The California Zephyr crossed into California at dawn. I woke to see the Sierra Nevada mountains, massive and snow-capped, glowing pink in the morning light. I'd crossed a continent, left behind everything familiar, and I felt lighter. The train descended through mountain valleys, past rushing rivers and pine forests, then into the Sacramento Valley flat and golden before climbing again toward the coastal mountains. At 4:10 p.m., exactly on schedule, we pulled into San Francisco's ferry building. Helen was waiting on the platform. I saw her before she saw me, still tall and angular, her hair now completely silver, wearing a purple jacket that matched her personality, bold, unapologetic, vibrant. Then she spotted me, and her face crumpled. She actually ran this 62-year-old retired nurse and wrapped me in a hug so tight I couldn't breathe. "Let me see," she said, pulling back to examine my face. The bruises had faded to yellow-green, but they were still visible. Helen's jaw clenched. "I'm okay," I said. "You're not, but you will be." She grabbed my small suitcase. "Come on, let's go home." Helen's apartment was in Pacific Heights, a charming Victorian with bay windows and hardwood floors. She'd lived there for 20 years, she told me, since her divorce. It was small but full of light plants and books. "The guest room is yours as long as you need it," she said. "Months, years, whatever. I can't impose—" "Savannah Marie Walker, you listen to me." Helen's voice was fierce. "You are not an imposition. You are my friend, my oldest, dearest friend. And you need a safe place to land, so you're landing here." That night, over Chinese takeout and wine she drank. I had tea. I told her everything. The whole story from beginning to end. The abuse, the recording, the sale, the train journey. When I finished, Helen was crying. "I should have known, should have seen it when I visited last year." "You couldn't have known. I hid it well. Too well. Women our age were too good at hiding." She wiped her eyes. "So what now? What do you want to do?" I thought about my list. "I want my own place. Nothing big, nothing fancy, just mine." "Okay, we'll start looking tomorrow. And I want to help other women. I don't know how yet, but there's a women's shelter 3 blocks from here," Helen said. "They're always looking for volunteers and donors." An idea began forming. How much did the house sell for? George said $785,000 right. I did the math. I could give $250,000 to the shelter, keep the rest for a place and living expenses. Helen's eyes widened. "Savannah, that's incredibly generous." "It's blood money," I said quietly. "Thomas and I earned that money honestly. Roman tainted it. Maybe if I give some of it away, it becomes clean again." We started small. The next morning, Helen took me to the Sunrise Women's Shelter. It was a converted Victorian, not unlike Helen's building, with a sign that read, "New Beginnings Start Here." The director, a woman named Matilda Rodriguez, was maybe 50 with kind eyes and a firm handshake. "I'd like to make a donation," I said, "and maybe volunteer if you need help." "We always need help," Matilda said. "What kind of donation at $250,000? Matilda sat down. Hard. "I'm sorry, did you say a $250,000? For renovations, beds, whatever you need." "May I ask why?" I touched my face where the bruises still showed. "Because I was lucky. I had resources to escape. Not every woman does." Matilda's eyes filled with tears. "Ms. Walker, Savannah, please." "Savannah, this is transformative. We've been trying to fix our roof for 2 years. We need new beds, a proper childcare space." She stood cross to me, took my hands. "You're going to change lives." "Someone changed mine," I said, thinking of George, of Helen, of Margaret on the train. "I'm just passing it on." Over the next week, I became a fixture at the shelter. I helped serve meals read to children, sat with women in the common room, and just listened. Their stories were heartbreaking. Many were younger than me, but their eyes looked ancient, worn down by years of abuse, gaslighting, financial control. I saw myself in all of them. One woman, Eleanor, was 74. She'd escaped her son who'd kept her prisoner in her own home, stolen her pension, isolated her from friends. "I read about you," she whispered to me one day. "Matilda told me. You sold the house while he was at work." I did. "That's brilliant. I wish I'd thought of that." Eleanor's smile was sad. "But my son had already sold my house, forged my signature. By the time I realized it was too late." "What will you do now?" "Sue him. Get my money back. And then—" Her eyes grew distant. "I always wanted to live by the ocean. Maybe I'll do that. I'm 74, but I'm not dead yet." I helped connect Eleanor with a lawyer, pro bono, someone who specialized in elder abuse. Within a month, she'd won her case. Her son was ordered to repay $340,000. The day Eleanor left the shelter, she hugged me tight. "Thank you for showing me it's possible, to start over, to choose yourself." "You did that," I said. "I just cheered you on." But her words stayed with me. I'd shown someone it was possible. Maybe that was my purpose now. Not to be someone's mother, someone's obligation, but to be an example. Proof that 60 wasn't the end. It was just another beginning. November 15th, Austin, Texas. I found the ranch online at 2 a.m., unable to sleep in Helen's guest room. I'd been in San Francisco for 3 weeks, and while I loved being with Helen, I needed my own space. The listing was simple. Half-acre ranch, modest 2-bedroom house, seasonal creek fruit trees, $275,000. Owner relocating. The photos showed a small white house with a wraparound porch, pecan trees, wildflower fields. It looked like peace. I called the realtor at 9 a.m. By 2 p.m. I'd made an offer. By that evening it was accepted. "You didn't even see it in person," Helen protested. "I don't need to. It's perfect." And it was. When I flew to Austin a week later and saw it for the first time, standing in November sunshine with bluebonnets blooming unseasonably late, I knew I'd found home. The previous owner, Mr. Edwards, was 83. He walked me through the property, pointing out the pecan trees, the blackberry bushes, the creek that ran strong in spring and slowed to a trickle in summer. "My wife and I built this place 40 years ago," he said. "Raised our kids here. Now she's gone and I'm going to live with my daughter in Houston." He smiled. "But I'm glad it's going to someone who'll appreciate it, not developers." "I'll take care of it," I promised. I moved in December 1st. Helen flew down to help me settle. We bought furniture from estate sales and thrift stores, nothing fancy, just comfortable. A big armchair for reading, a sturdy kitchen table, a bed with a view of the sunrise. On December 3rd, a stray dog appeared, medium-sized caramel-colored ribs showing. He watched me from the edge of the property while I planted winter vegetables. I left food out. He came closer. By December 5th, he was sleeping on my porch. By December 7th, he was sleeping in my house. I named him Ranger. He followed me everywhere, this gentle creature who'd also been abandoned. We healed together. Helen stayed through Christmas. We decorated a small tree, cooked a turkey for 2, and Ranger drank hot cocoa on the porch while watching stars. "Are you happy?" Helen asked on Christmas Eve. I thought about it. Really thought. "I'm not sure I know what happy means anymore," I said honestly. "But I'm at peace, and maybe that's better." "It's a start," Helen said. After she left, I established a routine. Wake at dawn, coffee on the porch, tend the garden, read, write in my journal, cook simple meals for 1, walk the property with Ranger, paint watercolors of the sunset. Simple, quiet, mine. The Johnsons, my nearest neighbors, a retired couple on the next property, came by with homemade bread in January. "Welcome to the neighborhood," Mrs. Johnson said. "We like to look after each other out here." They invited me to Sunday dinners, introduced me to other neighbors. By February, I had a community. In March, I started writing. Not a journal entry, but a story. My story. I wrote about the marriage, the sacrifice, the slow erosion of self. I wrote about Sunday night, the slaps, the laughter. I wrote about the sale, the train, the rebirth. I wrote every night for 6 weeks. When I finished, I had 60,000 words. Helen read it and cried. "Publish this," she said. "Please." "I don't know." "Savannah, there are thousands of women like you, like Eleanor, trapped in their 60s and 70s thinking it's too late. Show them it's not." I sent the manuscript to a small publisher Helen knew. They accepted it within a week. The book was published in July. Starting over at 60, one woman's journey from victim to victor. I didn't expect much, maybe a few hundred readers. other women in my situation. Instead, it became a phenomenon. Roman, March through September. I didn't hear from Roman directly, but I heard about him. George called in March. He consulted 3 lawyers about contesting the sale. They all told him the same thing: it's airtight. He has no legal standing. And Riley filed for divorce, moved to Chicago. The baby's due in June. I felt a pang not for Roman, but for the granddaughter I'd never meet. Another loss in a long line of losses. In April, George called again. He lost his job. The law firm let him go. Performance issues. Mesam. He's renting a studio apartment in Alexandria. Neighbors complained about him shouting at odd hours. June. Riley had the baby, a girl. She named her Savannah. That stopped me. She what date? Named her Savannah. Riley sent a birth announcement. I thought you should know. I sat on my porch, Ranger's head in my lap, and cried. Not sad tears, complicated ones. Riley had named her daughter after me. The woman she'd laughed at. The woman she'd helped destroy. Why? The answer came in August. A letter forwarded by George. From Riley. Dear Savannah, I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect forgiveness. But I need to write it anyway. When I held my daughter for the first time, I thought about that night. About your face. About my laughter. And I felt sick. If anyone ever hurt my Savannah the way Roman hurt you, the way I enabled it, I would burn the world down. I'm sorry. Those words are inadequate, but they're all I have. I named her Savannah because you showed me something I needed to see: that women can be strong. That we don't have to accept being treated as less than. That it's never too late to choose dignity. I left Roman. Not because of the house, but because of what you did after. You didn't scream or beg. You just left. And survived, and thrived. I want to be that for my daughter, strong enough to walk away from what diminishes me. Thank you for the lesson. I'm sorry it came at such a terrible cost. Riley, I read it 3 times. Then I wrote back. Riley, thank you for naming your daughter after me. It's an honor I don't deserve, but I accept it with hope. Hope that she grows up knowing her worth, that she never has to fight for dignity in her own home. I forgive you. Not because what you did was okay, but because I won't carry anger anymore. It's too heavy. Be well. Be strong. Teach little Savannah to be strong too. Savannah. In September, my book launched at a small bookstore in Austin. 50 women attended. Then 60. Then 80. The bookstore ran out of chairs. During the Q&A, one woman asked, "Do you regret selling the house?" Never. I said, I regret that it was necessary. But the house was just wood and brick. My dignity was worth more. Another, "Do you miss your son?" I paused. I miss who I hoped he would be, but I don't miss who he became. At the end of the signing, a man stood at the back of the bookstore. Thinner, older, humbler, Roman. Our eyes met across the crowded room. He didn't approach, just stood there holding a worn copy of my book, watching. Helen noticed. "Do you want me to ask him to leave?" I looked at my son, really looked at him. The arrogance was gone. The anger. He just looked lost. "No," I said. "Let him stay." When the crowd cleared, Roman approached slowly, like approaching a wild animal, afraid I'd bolt. "Hello, Savannah," he said. "Not Mom." He understood. "Roman, I read your book 3 times. His voice cracked. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Not for losing the house, for what I did to you, for becoming—" He stopped breathing hard. "For becoming Dad." And there it was, the truth we'd both been avoiding. "Your father never hit me," I said quietly. "But he hit you, didn't he?" Roman's face crumpled. "How did you know?" "I'm your mother. I knew." I'd suspected all those years ago. The bruises Roman claimed were from sports, the way he flinched when Thomas raised his voice. I'd known, and I'd stayed silent, and maybe that made me complicit too. "I swore I'd never be like him," Roman whispered. And then you became exactly like him. Because trauma doesn't just disappear. It echoes. We stood in silence. Then Roman said, "I'm in therapy. Group sessions for men with violent histories. I'm trying to change." "Good," I said, and I meant it. "Can you," he swallowed, "can you ever forgive me?" I thought about Riley's letter, about Eleanor at the shelter, about all the women I'd met who'd been hurt by people they loved. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe someday. But Roman, my forgiveness isn't what you need. You need to forgive yourself. And you need to make sure you never hurt anyone like that again. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. I'm moving to Charlotte. New job. Fresh start. I leave next week. I hope you find peace there. Will you? Can I write to you? Not expecting answers. Just to let you know how I'm doing, I considered. You can write to George. If I'm ready to hear from you, I'll let him know. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was something. A door not slammed shut, but not wide open either, just slightly ajar. Roman left. I watched him walk to his car, not a BMW anymore, just a modest Honda, and drive away. Helen appeared at my elbow. How do you feel? Tired, I said. But okay. I think I'm okay. That night back at the ranch, I sat on my porch with Ranger and watched the stars come out. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Ms. Walker, this is Eleanor. I'm at my new apartment in San Diego. I can see the ocean from my window. Thank you for showing me it's possible. I'm 74 and I'm just beginning. Love, Eleanor. I smiled and typed back. You were always possible. You just needed to see it. Enjoy the ocean. You've earned it. Another text. This one from Helen. I'm proud of you. Sleep well, warrior. And another. From George. Roman called me. Said the conversation went well. You're remarkable, Savannah. Thomas would be proud. I set my phone down and looked up at the stars. At 61 years old, I'd found something I'd lost decades ago myself. Not someone's wife, not someone's mother, not someone's burden, just Savannah. Finally, completely peacefully, just Savannah. And it was enough. October 16th, 2 years later, I woke on the anniversary in my own bed in my own house, with autumn sunlight streaming through windows I'd chosen curtains. I'd hung in a room painted the sage green I'd always wanted. 2 years. 2 years since Roman's hands had struck my face. 2 years since I'd walked out of Georgetown with nothing but documents and dignity. 2 years since I'd boarded a train heading west toward an unknown future. And what a future it had become. Ranger stirred at the foot of my bed, his tail thumping a lazy good morning. I scratched his ears and rose padding barefoot to the kitchen to make coffee. Through the window I could see my garden autumn vegetables, thriving the pecan trees heavy with nuts, wildflowers still blooming despite the season. Beyond that, the creek running stronger than usual after last week's rain. My home, my sanctuary, my new beginning. The coffee maker gurgled as I pulled ingredients for cornbread from the pantry. Today I was hosting lunch, a celebration Helen had insisted. 2 years of freedom deserved marking. My phone chimed. A text from Helen landing at 11 a.m. Can't wait to see you. Another from Eleanor in San Diego. Happy anniversary, dear friend. The ocean says hello. Another from Matilda at the shelter. 2 years of inspiring us all. Thank you for existing. I smiled, warmth spreading through my chest. This was family now. Not blood, but chosen. Not obligated, but genuine. The morning passed in pleasant preparation. I made cornbread, a salad from garden vegetables, slow-cooked pulled pork. Set the long table on the porch with mismatched plates from estate sales, each one different, each one chosen like the life I'd built. The Johnsons arrived first at noon, bringing their famous pecan pie. Then Matilda with 2 women from the shelter, Sarah and Grace, both starting new lives after escaping abusive situations. Then Helen bursting through the door with her usual energy. Look at you, Helen exclaimed, hugging me tight. You're glowing, absolutely glowing. I'm 62, Helen. I don't glow, I just reflect light off my wrinkles. Radiant wrinkles, then. She held me at arm's length, examining my face. Seriously, Savannah, you look 10 years younger than when I saw you in San Francisco. It was true, I realized. The tension I'd carried for decades in my shoulders, my jaw around my eyes, had melted away. I stood straighter, smiled more easily, laughed without restraint. Freedom looked good on me. We gathered on the porch, plates heaped with food, conversation flowing easily. Mrs. Johnson told stories about her grandchildren. Sarah shared news about her new job. Grace showed photos of the apartment she'd just rented, her first place alone in 15 years. To Savannah, Helen said, raising her sweet tea glass. Who showed us all that 60 isn't an ending? It's a plot twist. To new beginnings, I countered, at any age. We clinked glasses and I felt tears prick my eyes. Good tears. Grateful tears. Then I heard a car engine. Not a neighbor's familiar truck, something different. A newer sound. We all turned to watch a silver sedan navigate the dirt road to my house. It parked beside Helen's rental car, and for a moment no one emerged. Then the driver's door opened. Riley stepped out. She looked different. Softer somehow despite the obvious exhaustion of new motherhood. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. No designer clothes, just jeans and a sweater. She moved around to the back door and carefully extracted a car seat. Inside the car seat, a baby slept. Helen stood immediately protective. "Do you want me to—" "No," I said quietly. "It's okay." I walked down the porch steps, meeting Riley halfway across the yard. She stopped the car seat, heavy in her hands, her eyes uncertain. "I'm sorry," she said immediately. "I should have called. I was in Austin for a pediatrician appointment and I thought—" She broke off. "I shouldn't have assumed." I looked past her at the sleeping baby. Even from a distance I could see delicate features, a rosebud mouth, tiny fists curled against her chest. "Is this Savannah?" I asked. Riley nodded. "She's 6 months old now." 6 months. Half a year of life I hadn't witnessed. "May I see her?" Riley's eyes widened with surprise, and something that might have been relief. She carried the car seat closer, setting it gently on the grass. I knelt my 62-year-old knees, protesting slightly, and looked at my granddaughter for the first time. She was beautiful. Perfect. She had Roman's dark hair, but Riley's delicate bone structure. And when she stirred in her sleep, opening her eyes briefly, I saw they were gray-green, like mine. "Hello, little one," I whispered. The baby's eyes focused on my face, studying me with that intense infant concentration. Then she smiled, probably gas, but I chose to believe it was recognition. Some genetic memory of the grandmother she'd never met. My heart cracked open. Riley stood awkwardly while I admired the baby, clearly uncertain of her reception. On the porch, my friends watched with varying degrees of concern and curiosity. "Would you like to stay for lunch?" I asked, surprising myself. Riley's relief was palpable. "Are you sure I don't want to intrude? You drove from Chicago. The least I can do is feed you." I stood my knees, crackling. "Come, meet my friends." I made introductions. Helen was coolly polite. Matilda was professionally cordial. The Johnsons, naturally hospitable, immediately offered to hold the baby. "Oh, she's precious." Mrs. Johnson cooed expertly, extracting little Savannah from her car seat. "Look at those eyes." We settled back into lunch, though the atmosphere had shifted. Riley ate quietly, answering questions about the baby, about Chicago, about her life. She'd taken a job at a smaller tech company, she said. Remote work, mostly. Her parents helped with childcare. "And Roman?" Sarah asked, then immediately looked embarrassed. "Sorry, I shouldn't—" "It's okay," Riley said. She glanced at me. "He's in Charlotte. We're divorced. He sees Savannah once a month, supervised visits at a family center." "Supervised." Helen's tone was sharp. "My condition," Riley said. "I won't risk—" She looked at the baby in Mrs. Johnson's arms. "I won't risk anything." After lunch, while the others cleaned up Riley and I walked toward the creek, I carried baby Savannah, her small weight solid and real, in my arms. "I need to say something," Riley began, "and I need you to just listen. Please." I nodded. "That night," her voice broke. "That night I was 8 weeks pregnant. I just found out the baby's sex. I was so excited to tell Roman to tell you. I thought we'd celebrate." She stopped walking, staring at the creek. "When Roman hit you, I touched my stomach. It was instinctive, protective, and I realized, what if he hits this child someday? What if I become the kind of mother who watches and laughs?" Tears streamed down her face. "In that moment, I saw the future, and it terrified me. But I didn't stop him. I didn't protect you. I just sat there and enjoyed your pain." "Why?" I asked. Not angry, genuinely curious. "Why did you enjoy it?" Riley turned to face me. "Because I was jealous. Of you. Of the way Roman still cared what you thought, still wanted your approval. I convinced myself you were in the way of our perfect life." She laughed bitterly. "But there was no perfect life. Just a house built on lies and a marriage built on status. When you sold that house, you didn't destroy my life. You saved it." The baby stirred in my arms, making small mewing sounds. I rocked her gently. "I read your book," Riley continued. The part where you wrote about me you were so kind, kinder than I deserved. You called me a woman who hadn't yet learned her own strength. That destroyed me. It was true, I said. It was generous. Riley wiped her eyes. I'm trying to be better, to be strong, to raise this little girl to know she's worth more than pretty things and big houses. I looked down at the baby at Savannah named for me despite everything. She'd fallen back asleep, her breathing soft and even. Why did you really name her Savannah? I asked. Riley met my eyes. Because you were the bravest person I'd ever seen. You walked away from everything, your home, your son, your role as mother, to save yourself. And you didn't just survive. You built something better. She touched the baby's tiny hand. I want her to be like you, strong, unwilling to settle, brave enough to choose herself when she needs to. We stood in silence for a moment, the creek babbling, the autumn breeze rustling through pecan trees. I can't give you absolution, I said finally. That night left scars. I know. But I can accept your apology, and I can hope that you become the mother this little girl deserves. Riley nodded, fresh tears falling. Would you ever want to see her again? Not regularly, not if it's too painful, but maybe occasionally. I looked at the sleeping baby, my granddaughter, innocent of all the harm done in her name. Send me photos, I said, and if you're ever in Austin, you can visit. Not as family, I'm not ready for that, but as people who share a connection. That's more than I deserve. Probably, I agreed. But grace isn't about deserving. It's about choosing something higher than revenge. Riley took the baby back, holding her close. Thank you, Savannah, for everything, for this. She gestured at the ranch at me, for showing me there's another way. After Riley left, I returned to the porch where my friends waited. Are you okay? Helen asked immediately. I sat in my favorite rocking chair, suddenly exhausted. I don't know. Ask me tomorrow. That took guts, Matilda said, talking to her, holding the baby. Or stupidity, I said. I'm still deciding which. Courage, Mrs. Johnson corrected. That was courage, dear. The baby isn't responsible for her parents' mistakes. No, I agreed. She's not. That night after everyone had left and I was alone with Ranger, I sat on my porch and watched the stars emerge. My phone buzzed. A photo from Riley baby Savannah, wide awake, those gray-green eyes staring at the camera. The message read, "Thank you for today. She'll know who you are. I promise." I saved the photo. Maybe someday I'd print it, frame it, add it to the small collection on my mantle. Or maybe I wouldn't. Either way, it was nice to know she existed. November, George called on a Tuesday afternoon. Savannah, I have something for you from Roman. My stomach clenched. What kind of something? A letter. He asked me to forward it. You don't have to read it. Send it. The letter arrived 3 days later. I let it sit on my kitchen table for 2 more days unopened. Finally, on Sunday morning, with coffee and courage, I opened it. Savannah, I'm writing this from Charlotte, where I've been living for 3 months now. I have a small apartment, a job at a legal aid clinic, and a therapist I see twice a week. I don't expect you to respond. I just need to say things I should have said 2 years ago. I'm sorry. Those words are inadequate for what I did, but they're all I have. I'm sorry for the violence, for the cruelty, for becoming the man I swore I'd never be. Therapy has helped me understand some things. Dad hit me. You knew that, didn't you? I saw it in your eyes at the bookstore. He hit me, and you stayed, and I blamed you for that, almost as much as I blamed him. That doesn't excuse what I did. Nothing excuses it. But it helps me understand the rage I carried, the need to control the way I saw you as weak when you were actually the strongest person I knew. You survived Dad's emotional abuse for decades. You raised me alone, essentially, because he was never really present. You sacrificed your dreams to fund mine. And how did I repay you? By replicating the very abuse you'd endured. Riley sent me photos of baby Savannah with you. Seeing you hold my daughter while knowing what I did to you, it broke something in me. Or maybe fixed something. I'm not sure yet. I'm grateful you were kind to Riley. That you gave her grace she didn't deserve. That's who you are, gracious, forgiving, better than we ever were to you. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for a relationship. I'm just asking that you know I'm trying. Every day I'm trying to be better, to break the cycle, to make sure that if Savannah ever knows me, she knows a man who faced his demons and fought them. Your book saved me. Reading about what you went through, seeing myself through your eyes, it was devastating and necessary. I've given copies to every man in my therapy group. We read it together, discuss it, use it as a mirror to see ourselves clearly. Thank you for writing it, for having the courage to tell the truth, even when it exposed me. I hope you're happy in Texas. I hope you found peace. You deserve nothing less. Roman, I read it 3 times. Then I took my journal and wrote my response, not to send, just to process. Dear Roman, you're right. Your father did hit you, and I did stay. That's my shame to carry. I told myself I was protecting you by staying, but maybe I was just protecting myself from admitting I'd chosen wrong, that the man I married was broken in ways I couldn't fix. You became him, but you also became someone willing to change. That's more than he ever did. I forgive you. Not for you, for me. Because carrying anger is exhausting, and I'm too old to be exhausted anymore. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. Some things once broken can't be fully repaired. We can acknowledge the cracks, honor what was, and still choose separate paths. I'm glad you're in therapy. I'm glad you're trying. Keep trying. Not for me, but for that little girl who deserves a father who's done the work. Maybe someday, years from now, we'll sit across a table and have coffee like old friends remembering a painful past. Maybe not. Either way is okay. Be well. Savannah. I never sent it, but writing it felt like closing a door that had been swinging open, letting in cold drafts for 2 years. The next morning I called George. Tell Roman I got his letter. Tell him I appreciate it. And tell him I hope he finds peace. That's all. That's everything, I said. December 3 years later, my 3rd book launched on a snowy December evening in Austin. Beyond 60, Building a Life That's Truly Yours. The bookstore was packed, standing room only. Women of all ages, but mostly my peers. Women in their 60s, 70s, even 80s. Women who'd spent lifetimes being useful and were just now learning to be whole. During the Q&A, a woman raised her hand. She was maybe 75, elegant, with silver hair and a crown braid. Ms. Walker, do you ever regret selling the house? Do you ever wish you'd tried to repair the relationship with your son instead? I considered the question carefully. I don't regret the sale. That house was never really mine, not in the ways that mattered. As for Roman, I paused. I didn't end the relationship. I set boundaries. There's a difference. What's the difference? Another woman asked. Ending a relationship means no contact, no possibility of change. Setting boundaries means I love you enough to want you in my life, but only in ways that don't diminish me. If you can't meet that standard, you've chosen to stay away. Not me. After the signing, I walked to my car through gentle snow. Austin rarely got snow. This was a gift. My phone rang. A number I didn't recognize, but a Charlotte area code. I answered. Hello. Hi, Savannah. It's Roman. My breath caught. We hadn't spoken directly in 3 years. Roman? I'm sorry to call out of the blue. George gave me your number in case of emergency. This isn't exactly an emergency, but... He took a breath. I'm getting married. Of all the things I'd expected, this wasn't it. Oh. Her name is Diana. She's a therapist, actually. We met at a domestic violence conference I was speaking about my journey. She was presenting research. She knows everything about my past, about what I did to you. And she still said yes. She said yes to who I am now, not who I was. A pause. I wanted you to know. I'm not inviting you to the wedding. I wouldn't put you through that. I just wanted you to hear it from me. Thank you for that. Silence on the line. Then Roman said, I saw the photos Riley posted of Savannah. She's beautiful. And she asks about Grandma Savannah now. Riley shows her your picture. My eyes burned. Does she? Riley's been good about that, keeping you present even when you're not there. He cleared his throat. I see Savannah every month now. Unsupervised visits. I've done the work, gone to therapy, proven I can be trusted. I'm glad, I said, and meant it. Diana wants to meet you someday, when you're ready. She says anyone who could write those books, who could survive what you survived and still choose grace, that's someone she wants to know. Maybe someday, I said. Yeah, maybe. Another pause. Are you happy, Savannah, really happy? I looked around at the snowy parking lot, my reliable car, the bookstore behind me, full of women I'd inspired. I thought about my ranch, my garden, my community, about Helen's weekly calls, about Eleanor's postcards from San Diego, about the shelter bearing Thomas's name, about the life I'd built from nothing. Yes, I said, I'm really happy. Good. That's good. His voice cracked. I'm sorry. For everything. I'll spend my life being sorry. Don't, I said, don't spend your life being sorry. Spend it being better. That's the only apology that matters. When we hung up, I sat in my car and cried. Not sad tears. Releasing tears. The last weight of what had been finally lifting. I drove home through snow that was already melting Texas, not built for winter. Ranger greeted me at the door with his usual enthusiasm. I made tea, built a fire curled up in my favorite chair with a new book. My phone chimed. A text from Riley Savannah asked about you today. She wanted to know if you like butterflies. She made you this. Attached was a photo of a child's crayon drawing stick figures, colorful chaos, and what might have been butterflies or possibly birds. I saved it. Another text, this one from Helen, proud of you. Always. Come to SF for Christmas, I considered. Then typed back, yes, it's time. Another from Matilda book signing was incredible. You're changing lives, Savannah. And one more from George Thomas would be so proud. I am too. Sleep well, dear friend. I set my phone down and looked around my small, perfect home. This wasn't the life I'd planned at 22 when I married Thomas. It wasn't the life I'd imagined at 40 when I was teaching and mothering and trying to hold everything together. But it was mine. Completely, authentically, joyfully mine. At 63, I'd learned what I should have known at 20, that you teach people how to treat you. That love without respect is just another word for control. That it's never too late to choose yourself. I'd learned that family isn't always blood. That home isn't always a place. That forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation, and boundaries aren't betrayal. I'd learned that 60 wasn't an ending. It was a beginning I'd been waiting for my entire life. Outside, the snow had stopped. Stars emerged in the clear Texas sky. Ranger snored by the fire. My tea grew cold as I wrote in my journal, I am 63 years old. I have lived through abuse, betrayal, loss, and heartbreak. I have also lived through courage, rebirth, community, and joy. If you're reading this, if you're trapped in a life that's slowly erasing you, please know it's not too late. It's never too late. You are not a footnote in someone else's story. You are not too old to start over. You are not obligated to stay where you're diminished. You are the author of your own life. Pick up the pen. Write the next chapter. It might be the most important thing you ever do. I closed the journal and smiled at the future unknown, wide open waiting. And I was ready for it. 5 years later, the ranch has grown. There's a second small house now, a writer's retreat where I host women working on their own stories. Eleanor visits every spring. Riley and Savannah come for a week each summer. Roman and I exchange Christmas cards. Nothing more, nothing less. It's enough. I'm 68. I paint, I write, I garden, I teach workshops on starting over. I have coffee dates with James, the kind widower from town. Nothing serious, just pleasant company. Little Savannah is 5 now. She knows me as the grandmother who sends her books and butterflies cards. Someday Riley will tell her the whole story. For now, she just knows I'm Grandma Savannah, who lives on a ranch in Texas. That's enough, too. Last week, I received a letter from a woman in Michigan. She'd read my book and sold her house while her abusive son was at work. She's 72 and starting over. Thank you, she wrote, for showing me it's possible. I wrote back, you showed yourself. I just held up a mirror. This morning I woke at dawn, made coffee, and sat on my porch watching the sunrise. Ranger, older, now grayer, rested his head on my lap. I thought about Thomas, gone 15 years. About Roman still working on becoming the man he should have been. About the woman I was at 20, at 40, at 60. About the woman I am now. Not perfect. Not healed completely. Some wounds don't heal. They just become part of your story. But whole. Finally, completely whole. The sun broke over the horizon, painting the Texas sky in shades of gold and pink. A new day. Another beginning. At 68, I'm still starting over. Still becoming. And I've never been happier.